Hello and welcome to GuyLogicGaming. My name is Temco and this is Vive le Roi, or Long Live the King, which is a stylized 2D puzzle platformer. The game is coming out on mobile as well as PC, so we're going to take a look at the Steam version here and talk a little bit about all of its features, gameplay, depth, and all of that good stuff. But before we do all of that, let's go ahead and dive into some gameplay options, talk a little bit about the PC build, PC performance, and everything like that. As always, if you're not so inclined, you can skip straight on ahead to the gameplay segment. There is a link at the top of the description below. Option-wise, the game doesn't have a ton of options, and this is mostly okay because the game is a stylized 2D game. But it would have still been nice to have proper full screen on or off or resolution options available that make more sense than just on or off and resolution that is based on your size of the resolution of your monitor. Not the greatest. I'm also not a fan of the way you change things like language or subtitles or volume, where incrementing it to a different one, such as font, makes it go forward and forward and forward until it resets back to the one it was left at. Kind of annoying because it doesn't allow you to quickly change settings. It also doesn't allow you to go back to a previous setting. You have to go forward and cycle through all of them yet again, and for something like font, that is kind of tedious and annoying. Not the greatest way of using the options menu. Another note is that the game is fully mouse controlled, and while this is okay for most situations, the mouse controls aren't that great, mostly because the game also tries to use the same controls for its hand-driven and gesture-driven controls for the mobile version, and mostly replace that with a mouse click. There's still no key bindings or anything of the sort for keyboard controls, such as shortcuts or map panning or everything like that, and that is a damn shame because the game is really a very basic port from the mobile version and nothing more. And that is a damn shame, so I would have liked to see more features such as rebindable key bindings or hotkeys in general, more fine-tuned mouse control, contextualized menu controls for various actions in the game, and none of that is available, so that is definitely quite a bit of a shame. The game also doesn't look that fantastic, even though it is quite a low fidelity and low performance requirement title. It's not that fantastic. But overall, the options menu is what it is and it doesn't completely suck. Most of the things you'd expect for a 2D stylized game, but not all of them you would like to see, or at least I would like to see. Having said that, we need to talk about the game itself. Now, the game has 30 levels, and it took me about 20 minutes to get to level 10, and that isn't fantastic, because the game is all about timing, and most of the time, you can't really plan ahead for that timing. You have to go around with trial and error. The game doesn't have a lot of tutorials, the game doesn't explain much of anything. So let's go ahead and dive into an earlier level, and I'll explain what I mean with some of these things that are going on. So loading into this is level 5. You can see that the king is going to be killed if we don't save him, and the only way we can save him is by going around this menacing dude with a bayonet. Now you move your character by clicking on the screen, somewhere along these lines. The problem is you don't really know how far his line of sight is, and you don't know if when you're standing in this dark area that you're actually standing in the dark, as opposed to just not being rendered because that's the spot you're standing on. Also note that every click counts forward for your total score. Less clicks means a better score, means more stars. Now in the PC versions, stars don't really mean much of anything, so there's no real reason to worry about any of that, whereas in the mobile version, those do make a difference. Also note that adding extra stars or unlocking new things with stars really isn't that great, and it doesn't really add anything to the game, doesn't unlock new features, doesn't unlock new special things. It's basically a bit of a challenge mode. Having said that, overall the gameplay isn't even that bad. Puzzles themselves are pretty interesting, the audio design for the game is pretty okay, but there are a couple of issues I've encountered with this. Most of them boiling down to the control scheme of the game just being not that precise. And if you take back a look and think ahead and say, oh, that's because it's for mobile, you'd be completely right. Most of the control issues with the game are due to the imprecise nature of using your thick, grubby fingers on a small screen. Whereas this game, well, it doesn't have that problem. All it has really is imprecise controls at this point. And that is quite a shame. I would have liked to see more precise controls. Also, the fact that every click for every reposition counts ahead to your score really makes you hesitant to try out things or experiment with things, and you may be playing the same level over and over and over again, just trying to see if you can't remove a single step in the process. Part of the problem though, such as this level we're in right now, is that the king is off screen, and standing still makes you lose the level up front. So once you load in, there is no spot where you can think ahead. You will lose out on the game. Also, the game locks you into your action quite a bit, meaning that unless you click at the exact correct time to perform an action, you might actually end up costing yourselves the game for that level or run. On top of that, controls aren't that precise, as I said earlier, so hiding behind things like walls, while it may sound very logical and interesting overall, the bottom result is, though, that the game more often than not misrepresents that command as something else. And because the way commands are delayed in their interaction, you also end up having massive issues with timing your various abilities. Overall, all of this leads to more frustration and trial and error than is strictly necessary for a game like this. And every action you take being so focused on trial and error results in so many issues, especially in this very level I'm showing you now, where you can see all of these issues being very obvious. Timing of the mob up above doesn't result in any changes. You can't remove a click here because the end result is, well, he'll go down the stairs on the wrong side. So meaning you have to waste a click to get him to the proper side of the stairs, whereas logically, that character would need to, you guessed it, move ahead to the other side of the stairs, which would make much more sense. Now overall, the puzzles themselves aren't bad, but because of the way interaction works in the game, you have a lot of trial and error and a lot of issues you come across with the game just trying to complete the variety of puzzles that are already in the game. A good example here is this very level, where timing things for this level is nigh on impossible. Not because the game itself makes it impossible, but because the way you have to time things, there's no way to abort a move. So having mistimed that move, I'm gonna have to be forced yet again to go to the spot I'm standing at, waste extra steps, then move up the step I'm going to, and it doesn't let me abort that move, so having not known that other character is going to change direction, I again fail. All of these things would have been able to observe if the game had any indication of these things, but as we saw in the previous level, observing at first might also cost you the level. So it's very inconsistent, it's very imprecise, and because of the game providing very little feedback, you end up playing more of a trial and error run than any puzzle solving, which is a kind of a shame because the puzzles themselves are interesting, especially later levels that have multiple steps to each puzzle are really good. But because of the imprecise nature, because of the way the character is locked into an action you click on, and because of the imprecise actions themselves, when you never know where it's going to end or stop or move forward to, you end up losing more often than not for no particular reason. And in some scenarios, it is actually impossible to win a level with 3 stars simply because the PC version requires more clicks than the console version, and that is a damn shame because that means there is barely any attention put into the PC version, which, to be fair, was fairly evident from the get-go at the very start. Not the greatest of things. Now, having said all of that, there are a couple of things to note. And that is that the game isn't all bad. The game is very stable, the gameplay is very smooth and very consistent. And nothing really that changes time over time. Every level is more or less constructed in the same manner with a variety of levels and different degrees of puzzle. And if this was a game on mobile I came across, I would really enjoy playing this game because its production values, especially for mobile, are very good. It doesn't have any bugs. The gameplay is solid, the puzzles are interesting and often quite complex later down the line, while still incrementally increasing the difficulty curve to not overwhelm you early on. On a PC port with no keyboard controls to speak of, not even hotkeys or shortcuts, no contextualized menus for the mouse when you can use actions or trigger actions, no advanced features or extra graphical presets that make it distinct from the mobile version, this game is really subpar on the PC, and its competitors in a market saturated with puzzle platformers are plentiful and often much better. So overall, Vive le Roi is not a bad game, but the limited length of 30 levels, the very limited replay value of the game, coupled with its low production values on PC in terms of key bindings, in terms of PC options, in general in terms of the way the interaction works, imprecise mouse controls and everything like that, does pull it down several notches from being a very good game to merely being adequate. And generally speaking, adequate doesn't get you sold on PC, especially not in a market as saturated as the puzzle platformer market is currently. Would I recommend Vive le Roi at its current form? And the answer to that is not really, unless you're desperate for a stylized puzzle platformer or maybe a little game you can play on the fly. Vive le Roi is coming out on Steam on February 23rd, and you can check it out in a link in the description below if you are so inclined. Not a bad game, but not that great either. Adequate. That is the best I can give it. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, press that like button below. If you didn't like this video, well, there's a dislike button for exactly that purpose. And leave a comment. Tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like. We want to hear back from all of you. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button down below and we will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day, and until next time, right here on GuyLogic